Hi, everyone. Fast casual restaurants have faced a slightly different problem during the pandemic, including the loss of the office lunch crowd and the lack of foot traffic in densely populated cities and tourist areas that they depend on for their business. I'm Claudia Saric. Welcome to another Trust20 live event. Today, we'll be talking about all of this and more with Alison Fong, co-founder and chef of Boston's fast casual restaurant chain, Banh Mi. Let's welcome her to the show. Hi, Alison. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So let's talk about Banh Mi. Tell us about your business, how you got into this, your inspiration, what kind of food you're selling.
All right, so we are about 10 years old. We began as a single food truck in 2011, serving food on City Hall Plaza in Boston after winning a food truck competition because the city was trying to bring sort of this new wave of food trucks to our city. We didn't really have this style of food truck before then. And so that's when we came up with our concept of Banh Mi, named after the banh mi sandwich. It's a play on words. Now we serve Asian-inspired eats, sandwiches, of course, but we also do rice bowls, noodle salads, and a number of chef-crafted dishes. We have also expanded quite a bit, and so now we have 8 trucks, 2 carts, and 8 brick and mortar locations.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting. Okay. So, but you started off with the actual physical locations and then you moved to trucks?
Oh, actually, it was the opposite. We first started with 1 truck about 10 years ago. We added a few trucks along the way, and then we started adding more restaurants.
Ah, okay. That's great. So when the pandemic first hit in March and everybody, restaurants across the country were going through a shutdown and a lot of them had to pivot their business really fast. How did you guys handle that? What did your business struggle with the most when that first happened?
Well, like most businesses, we didn't really expect this to happen so quickly and so suddenly. And so we, at first we're sort of thinking, oh, it's going to be a few weeks, things will reopen. And then we slowly learned that this was not something that was going away anytime soon. And one of the immediate issues we had was, what do we do with all this excess food? And so we just, we have a lot of locations. So it was a lot, like thousands of pounds of food that we had that was about to go to waste.
Yeah. And how did you handle that?
So we were lucky in that we were able to work with a number of community organizations in our neighborhood. So we partnered with one of them that distributed all of our proteins, our vegetables, anything that was still usable to a number of local community organizations. So none of it went to waste, which is great.
Oh, that is great. So are you still partnered with some of those organizations now, or I know you also talked about you moved into healthcare as well.
Yeah, so I guess a little bit later on, we have a very large commissary. And so we sort of pivoted a little bit and partnered with another organization called Eastie Farm and started serving community meals for the East Boston and Chinatown communities. And we did this several times a week, and we served thousands of meals. And it was a great way to just sort of help out and to make foods in the safest way possible with our very large commissary kitchen.
Sure, that makes sense. So were you already prepared to switch to that kind of a model, or what were kind of the operational things that had to happen on the back end? And how about technology, any technology that you might have utilized to help with the flow of that as well?
Yeah, so for community meals, I think one of the biggest issues back then was that we used to have lots of people working in our kitchen, and it was very large. And so we limited the number of people, and we're really able to spread ourselves out to do everything safely, for ourselves and our employees, and also in a safe manner for those people in need that were receiving the meals. I guess around that time and a little bit later on, we also began to open some of our restaurants up, and that was quite a challenge just because some of the spaces are not very large, and to design systems so that people were able to work in a distance manner, and to sort of move things around so that each person didn't have to cross into the path of someone else was, quite a challenge at first. But now we're experts at that.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit more about that. I know that you, I know we talked before. You had mentioned some kiosks, and you talked about some stuff you had to do with training your staff to be prepared, for upgraded health and safety measures. Not just operationally, but some of the things they actually had to do, like not touching their mask. Can you talk us through some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So luckily, because we're already in food service, like a lot of the sort of things that the CDC is saying about ways to prevent spread of the virus, we were doing already, like hand washing, and just sort of like we're used to wearing like gloves, washing our hands and wearing gloves. So and not touching anything dirty once we have gloves on. But I think the added mask wearing and the social distancing was quite a challenge. And just sort of to get around that, we just made sure that our managers really reminded everyone about the procedures. And now we have some extra protocols, such as having a questionnaire. We do, before anyone is allowed to start working, and we also take everyone for sure.
Okay, interesting. And do you do that with your staff as well, or is it just the guests? Where I know a lot of the restaurants are doing the temperature checks at the door, hand washing at the door. Is that something you're doing with your staff as well?
Yeah, that's actually something we're doing with our staff only. Whereas a lot of the people that come in to our restaurants, there's actually very minimal. There's actually no interaction with our guests that is less than 6 feet apart. And because we're fast casual, we sort of hand off the food, and then they can, at our locations that are large enough, we do still have a few tables, or we have tables now. So in Massachusetts, we're allowed to have a few tables in the restaurants, but I think that there is actually like no, less than 6 feet distance contact with our guests.
That makes sense. So are you guys doing more, or I know a lot of restaurants, and we talked about this a little bit before, has switched over to third-party delivery apps and have done a lot of, it sounds like you were already doing a lot of takeout, but actual delivery, is that something your restaurant had tackled before? And if you didn't, then when you did implement it, what was the process like for that?
Yeah, there was a sort of a rush to add a number of different third-party delivery apps, and so we did that sort of at the very beginning. And it's a little bit of a challenge, the upfront cost of like setting that up. I think like drivers sometimes can't find the location, and there's just a number of small kinks. But we now are on quite a number of them. We do also do our we also have our own like online ordering system via our website, and we also do partner with Square to do deliveries as well. So there's a lot of ways to order from us and get delivery.
Excellent. Yeah. And have you seen a lot of good feedback from customers about that? I know you said that, when the pandemic first hit, you lost a lot of the lunch crowd and some of the general touristy foot traffic. Did that help make up the bulk of the business, or was it really shifting your model into different business types, or how did that work for you?
We still really haven't like even come close to fully recovering.
Yeah.
I think that being in the downtown and like foot traffic heavy areas, there still isn't a lot of foot traffic in like the previously very busy locations in downtown. However, we do have a couple of locations that are near like hospitals and places to buy groceries. So those actually have held up quite well. But I think that it's been challenging for us now to think about ways to pivot our business so we are able to like operate more effectively. And so we have been thinking about things like menu changes. And we, at the very beginning, we started to sell different things like some of our like raw ingredients. We sold noodles, like different rices and things like that. But we've also pivoted a little bit more towards comfort foods. And so we have fried rices, which is very something that we had thought about doing before and just never had. And we also have this like really yummy chicken wings on our menu as well. That's new since the pandemic.
Yeah. And how have those, I mean, we've heard a lot of folks talk about this too, that they had to think about, the things that would travel well, the food items that they could switch up a little bit that were maybe easier to get some of the ingredients that they needed and they required. And I think it's interesting that we're hearing a lot of operators saying that the downtime actually helps some of them a little bit to rethink some of the operational efficiencies, some of the technology, the menu changes that they've been wanting to implement, but they just didn't have time to do. I mean, obviously we don't, I'm not making light of the pandemic and how difficult it's been for so many restaurant operators, but still I can understand that some of the time, it allowed for more time to think about that kind of thing. So I think that's interesting. Tell us a little bit more about some of the menu items that worked really well that you think that you'll keep going forward or that you'll still continue to explore. Like, I don't know if you did catering before, but if you'll do something like that, or I know you said you sold grocery items. Is that something you would, or your noodles, is that something you would continue to do in the future?
We're sort of used to sort of like going with the flow. And so we've tried a lot of things. Some of them haven't worked. I know that they've worked for other businesses, but they haven't worked for us. So we did actually have a lot of, and still do have a little bit more time than usual to think about like broader long-term changes beyond just how to react to the current situation. So we have been able to think about like big changes, like systems changes in, like, for example, our training program and like how we hire and things like that. I think in terms of the menu changes that we're going to stick with, we have a few different models of restaurants. They're not all exactly the same, but we really have been loving sort of the latest menu additions of our fried rices. They hold super well in transit. But we've been currently are thinking about things like, well, packaging, we have to rethink packaging perhaps a little bit just to make sure that the stuff is, going to be the right texture and the right temperature when our customers and guests receive the food. And so that has been, quite a challenge. It's different from the before, when people would just be grabbing the food and eating it right there, grabbing the food and walking a very short distance and eating it.
And I know Banh Mi has a really strong digital presence as well online. Did you notice that customers were I'm curious what the customer sentiment has been since you implemented some of these changes. Did you notice that they were sharing photos on Instagram? Did you guys beef up your website presence, your social presence online? How did that work for you?
Yeah, we still have been able to maintain that presence. And also it's been helpful just because there have been, so many changes. Like we gradually opened our restaurants. And so just like using that platform to like let all of our customers know, like we recently reopened a location that, we've been holding back on just because, it was such a downtown location, and letting people know like very quickly via social media has been really helpful just to get the word out. So we're happy we have been able to do that.
Yeah, sure, of course. So what other advice do you have for folks that are in the fast casual restaurant space? I know we've had a few operators reached out to us that are also in downtown. I just talked to one recently that was in a downtown Chicago location, a sushi restaurant that was really, really struggling with that lunch crowd and the lunchbox specials that they said they used to run out of every day, and now they don't know what to do with anymore. So what kind of advice would you give to someone that was looking to say, hey, how can I save my business right now? What are the things that I can really focus on?
Yeah, that's something that, we think about and struggle with. I think I think when you're in the industry where, you need to have that foot traffic, it hasn't been great in terms of, the numbers right now. And so that's why we've just been really focusing on, okay, let's survive right now and keep our eyes on the future, and focus on how things will be after things are like, getting closer to back to normal, and what are the things we can do now to make improvements so that we're set up for success later. Because I think that with that heavy foot traffic not happening right now, it's I think that a lot of the like smaller changes, it's very, very hard to overcome the like huge numbers of people that are no longer around to order food, or no people aren't going to their office. So focusing on the future, basically.
Yeah. So, I mean, what is your hope for the restaurant industry in the future? Are there any changes that you think have been really well received that you think that the industry should adopt? I know a lot of people have gone, more digital. The ones that weren't doing as much digitization before the pandemic have now really focused on that. I know that there's also, the idea of paying a little bit more attention to some of the ways we interact with guests, how we communicate our health and safety guidelines, even though I know a lot of restaurants were doing a great job before, but even doing even more than, now to really communicate that to their guests. What do you hope for in the future?
Well, I think that with everyone being so aware of like how many seconds and you need to wash your hands for, I think that
Right.
that's like, with having an open kitchen in most of our locations, I think that is like definitely something, like all the health practices and being very visible, making sure that we communicate to our customers that we're doing these things and they can, see that we're doing that there. That's a positive change because with everyone sort of being aware of what you should be doing to serve safe food, I think it's like really helpful
Sure.
for everyone.
Sure. That's great. So tell us where people can find you to learn more and where they can follow you online and where they can see all your great specials and all your great food.
Yeah, they can go to our website, which is BamiTruck.com, and then @Bami is our handle.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Alison. I really appreciate your time. Thanks so much to Trust20 again for hosting a live event with us. Restaurant operators, if you have not utilized or taken advantage of Trust20's free assessment call that they are running right now, please make sure that you do so. You go straight to their website and you can sign up right there. Thanks again for tuning in, everyone, and we'll see you next time.